independent media is one of the last places to access critical truths, thoughtful evaluations, and common sense observations about what is happening around us. So we are here to unpack modern events, chat with interesting and insightful people, and provide historical, sociopolitical, and behavioral cognitive concepts to help people redefine the joy, discomfort, and uncertainty. Never believe anything enough to stop seeking truth, people, and seek it in the company of those you love. This is DeCarcerated with M. Jane and Ty Bricker.
Hello, and welcome to the DeCarcerated podcast. This is episode 1, pilot episode. We'll take a minute to introduce ourselves, and then we'll get to it. I am Ty Bricker, and quick little background on myself, so you guys have some context on who we're talking to here. I have 4 years experience in the U.S. Army, 75th Ranger Regiment, 2nd Range Battalion out of Fort Lewis, Washington, from 03 to 07. And then I went directly to work right after that as a international protective security contractor, worked for Blackwater USA and Special Operations Consultants till about 2013. So another 6 years. Then I decided to transition to something here in the States that would give me the opportunity to not be gone all the time. And so I became a federal cop, federal law enforcement officer, and did that for just about 10 years in a lot of different places. I currently have my master's in political science, and I will be working towards a PhD in history here pretty soon. And active ski bum, living in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, trying to enjoy the summer if we get any. I don't know. We'll see. It's been 6 months. It's been a 450-inch winter. It's been pretty serious here. So
It's been a half-year winter.
We're trying to get excited about some sun here and trying to remember what it's like to be warm. So
And what grass looks like.
That'll be handy.
I am Melina, and I am a community educator, social scientist in the field of psychology. Got a background in social work and human services, also education, obviously. And that's kind of it. I don't like talking about myself.
Oh, it's weird, huh?
I'm now an active ski bum. I'm looking forward to grass as well.
She has a force-fed ski bum this year. Along with five twerps.
Oh, yeah. We've got 5 kids.
That's right. And so we're going to focus on a few things today. We're going to do a focus on Ukraine to start with. And then we're going to go from Ukraine to mass media, what the current situation is with mass media and the news and how dicked up that whole situation is. And then we're going to do a coward of the day, or of the week, I guess, which will be me. And then
you're going to highlight the coward. You're not the coward.
Yeah.
And then I will do the hero of the week.
I'm not sure how that sounded, but I try not to overt my cowardice too much.
It's okay. We're authentic.
So we'll do the coward. We'll do the coward of the day, the hero of the day, and then that'll be it. So maiden voyage. Here we go, people. Be easy on us. We'll see what we can do here. Let's talk about Russia and Ukraine. Yay. Let's talk about war. All right. So the reason we decided to kind of lead off with this is because there's been some recent events that have taken place. In case you're not aware, last night, it is the 3rd today. So I guess it was the night of the 2nd in Russia. 2 drones entered Russian airspace all the way into the Kremlin in Moscow, and they were shot down over the top. Currently, Vladimir Putin is saying that this is an overt terrorist attack, and he is obviously finger pointing Ukraine with this. He probably has eyes on a few other countries, which, I mean, if you got to be realistic, he's probably thinking about us as well. Obviously, Ukraine is saying, as they would, that they didn't have anything to do with it. But you can Google it, and it's a pretty interesting video. You can see the drones getting blown right out of the sky, right over the top of the Kremlin. It's a pretty interesting deal there. And so, why is this important? It's a clear escalation of force, and exactly why we haven't sent Ukraine equipment that can reach deep within Russian territory, i.e. jets and certain munitions such as Hellfire missiles and various other capabilities that have a much, further reach than the stuff that we've already given them, as if we haven't given them a lot of stuff already. So before we're going to tie some stuff together here. There's been a lot going on with the Ukrainian war. So we're going to, and being that this is the first time that we're talking about it, we're going to go over a few things and kind of tie it together at the end on what that's looking like for us. So September 26th of last year, there was a development. There was a series of deep sea explosions in the Baltic Sea. 2 natural gas pipelines, the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipelines, were exploded in a clear and overt attack, obviously. Initially, we accused Russia of blowing up their own pipeline, which they denied. Russia accused us and Ukraine of doing it. And there's a lot that goes into this, and we're going to talk about whether or not this is an act of war and kind of where this goes. And like I said, we're going to go back to a few different things here, but we're going to go into this right now. So new intelligence reviewed by U.S. officials suggests that a pro-Ukrainian group carried out the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines last year, a step towards determining responsibility for an act of sabotage that has confounded investigators on both sides of the Atlantic for months. Okay. So what is the Nord Stream pipeline? It was the first pipeline that bypassed Ukraine and Poland. Poland is a NATO country. It was to deliver Russian national gas directly to Western Europe. This project was opposed from the start by the United States, who imposed sanctions on companies that were involved in the project. This also had a little bit to do with how people were talking about the bad winter that Europe was going to face. I mean, natural gas does what? Heats.
Provides energy.
I mean, like it cooks your food and shit.
Yep.
It's a pretty important deal. Okay, so the pipeline was blown up by some people who supposedly just a pro-Ukrainian group. Okay, so let's take a look at that piece of news right there. Before we have any accusations on who did or who didn't do it, you guys can probably think about that for yourself, but I'll give you some facts here that might make you kind of draw your own conclusions. Okay. The pipeline itself is 80 to 100 meters below water. All right. So roughly speaking, you can say a meter is what, like 3 feet, pretty much.
It's exactly 3 feet.
3 feet. So if anybody's out there that's a patty diver, okay, if you've gone like 50 feet down in Lake Powell, you know pretty quick. You can really, really think about what 300 feet would be like. Okay. So you're talking about professional divers here. Number one. Now keep in mind, what did we say? This was a pro-Ukrainian group that was in a boat in the water that happened to know where the pipeline was, that decided they were going to blow it up. All right. So we're 300 feet below water. All right. What's the average temperature of the Baltic Sea in September? 45 degrees. Okay. Water is considered freezing around 50 degrees. It's going to be much colder, obviously, the deeper you go. So if the surface temperature of the water is 45 degrees and you're 300 feet down, you're going to have some pretty damn serious equipment. They're going to have some real capabilities and some real heavy hitting training to be able to accomplish that task in the dark, in the cold, undetected in the Baltic Sea, which doesn't have the best reputation for having like fucking great weather and shit. All right. So what else?
Was this in September?
September 26th.
Okay.
So almost October.
Yep.
All right. And like, in case anybody's not familiar with the Baltic Sea, it's cold. It's like that whole, you're talking about October around up there. It's cold temperatures. All right. The pipes themselves, the Nord Stream pipes, are 1.5 inches thick. They're actually a little bit above 1.5 inches thick. Steel. Okay. With another 4.5 inches of concrete wrapped around the pipe. So you have 1.5 inches of steel, 4.5 inches of concrete around the pipe. Each of the 100,000 or so sections of the pipe weigh 24 metric tons each. Okay. So now we're talking about people who are just Ukrainian sympathizers.
That's so vague.
Who have gone down 300 feet in the Baltic Sea. Okay. They've set up presumably a shape charge of some kind, and they had the right equipment to do a timer, right? Or a remote det for sure, to set up the charge and go through 1.5 inches of steel and 4.5 inches of concrete to destroy that section of the pipe.
Because they were Ukrainian sympathizers.
They were Ukrainian sympathizers. Okay. Also, this is another thing. The NATO Security Council has decided to not investigate this event, which is another very interesting development for me. I mean, the NATO Security Council is, or I'm sorry, it's the UN Security Council has decided not to run an independent investigation on who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Why?
And well, it's a very interesting thing. Obviously, Russia doesn't like that. Russia, interestingly, is part of the UN Security Council. It's one of the members. You have China, Russia. You might want to look this up really quick. We got China, Russia, the United States, Great Britain, and maybe Germany or France, I think, as part of the UN Security Council. And they're basically they're the shot callers.
Permanent members: China, France, Russian Federation, UK, US.
Okay, yeah. And so, but they have to agree on investigations like that. And obviously, Russia wanted the investigation. I would assume China, based on their relationship, would want the investigation.
Europe would, right?
Yeah. Well, Europe, I would think, because they get a lot of their energy from there. But bottom line is it's not going to happen.
I guess the UK was part of that. I guess Europe isn't really in there.
Well, you got France.
Oh, that's true.
So, okay.
Nobody wanted it?
Well, no. Presumably, Russia wanted the investigation. It's a Russian pipeline. They're the ones that lost money. It was their pipeline that blew up. It was them that got all the sanctions.
And everybody else was like, nah.
Nope, exactly. Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Also, on a secondary note, for anybody who's interested, when we went to war with Iraq, the UN Security Council did not greenlight it, but it didn't stop the United States from going to war with Iraq either. So,
what good is it?
That's the United Nations, It's like they're kind of like, I mean, you take a look at Somalia, Bosnia, the track record's not great.
They're every meeting that could have just been an email.
But they got plenty of money. They get plenty of money. All right. So if you really didn't believe that the US did this, that's fine, but you're going to have to come up with a rational alternative, because like we said, you're looking at around 300 feet of water, beginning at end of September, freezing temperatures. You're going to have some kind of a very, very sophisticated charge that's going to be on a timer or a remote det, and it's going to have to penetrate 1.5 inches of steel and 4.5 inches of concrete.
And you have to know where it is and do it undetected.
And you have to know where it is and you have to do it undetected. So maybe it wasn't us. Maybe it wasn't.
10-second interruption.
Yeah.
Most of the time when something is like a terrorist attack, it seems as though there are groups that are like lining up to take credit for something that's been really destructive. But the fact that 0 people are saying, oh, we did that, is really suspicious to me.
It's very suspicious.
It means that at least one of the people saying they didn't is the person that did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
More than likely. I mean, usually an overt terrorist attack like that, which is what a lot of people would consider this to be, there would be a claim of responsibility for sure. I mean, because that has to do directly to funding, if anything, Yeah. All right, so let's move on to more about it. President Joe Biden said in a press briefing last year, if Russia invades Ukraine, now this is before Russia invaded Ukraine, there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2. We will bring it to an end. When asked by a reporter, how would you do that? Biden said, I promise you we will be able to do that. Okay, so once again, draw your own conclusions.
That sounds like if she leaves me, I'll kill her, and then a year later she dies.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing about it is it's a very, the thing about it is the United, like us as a people, we're not as ignorant as we once were. We're not as dependent on individual journalists as we once were. We're, mass media, social media, we're the amount of information that we can get and eventually find, even whether you're talking about COVID or the Iraq war or the war in Ukraine right now, or global warming, or like ancient aliens or whatever the fuck, like whatever you pick the topic.
There's information.
We're much more well versed now than we ever used to be. I mean, you used to be able to just say shit, and it's like, all right. I mean, but now it's like you can just say shit, but you take a look at the ratings and everything else that's going on. Like we're not buying it anymore. We're just not. So we had that. What he said. All right. Also, a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist by a man by the name of Seymour Hersh. You might have heard of him. He only won the freaking Pulitzer Prize for, let me pull up this website of his here. He's an investigative journalist. He's reported on CIA bombings in Cambodia, Henry Kissinger's wiretapping, CIA efforts against Chile and in Chile against El Salvador Allende, Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, South Chicago stuff. I mean, this guy is extremely just like renowned in the community. And he directly reported that the United States did the attack. Okay. So let's tie this together a little bit. All right. So that's events up to now outside of just standard war shit. All right. So let's talk about money and equipment. All right. So far to date, we've given Ukraine $115 billion. 115 billion. Okay. Of that 115 billion, 30 billion is in equipment and munitions. All right. So that leaves, I'm not like a mat, like with $85 billion. That's just like, here you go. Don't worry about receipts.
But the good thing is we're tracking it, right?
Don't worry about receipts. Just a bunch of.
It's per diem.
It's per diem. So we don't have any accountability for $85 billion at all. But what we do have is 4 deputy ministers and 5 governors of provinces in Ukraine have had to forfeit their positions for stealing at least $400,000, like each. It kind of looks like here.
Which is nothing.
I mean,
it's awful.
It is nothing.
But it feels very scapegoaty. Like, we're trying to be really honest and transparent. Look at these naughty people. We're going to get rid of them. And in reality, they're like, listen, almost $500,000 US, and you just fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah, they were buying houses in like France and shit. Like, there's a war going on in their home country. You get $85 billion of just fucking cash. Yep. And they're buying vacation homes and shit. Yep. Is anybody surprised? Like, the only person who called for accountability for the money was freaking Rand Paul. Yep. Over and over and over again. Who was also the only guy who really was trying to get accountability from Fauci and COVID and stuff too.
And he's just completely ostracized.
Totally ostracized. Like, fuck you, man. Like, what do we need to know anything about this money? So let's do some other stuff. So 31 Abrams M1 tanks. Each one of those tanks is $9 million a piece. We gave them 31 of them. We also gave them a bunch of armored vehicles, including armored vehicles that launch bridges. For a lot of you that don't know, these particular vehicles have the capability of being able to individually or kind of Lego together to be able to give you a river crossing or a stream crossing or a crossing over, any number of other things you might need to do. We gave them a bunch of that shit. Obviously, a bunch of ammunition, a whole bunch of munitions, but $30 billion worth of equipment. So all of that is included in the $30 billion of equipment, which leaves us with, $85 billion of just fucking whatever you want to do with the money.
Homes and friends.
Yep. And so, the thing about it now is, and when you kind of, wrap this all up and put a little bow on it here, at least for this episode, is we just came out of a 20-year war with the global war on terrorism. We were engaged in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, various other locations. We spent a hell of a lot of money, and obviously spent a hell of a lot of blood in it as well. In this war, we had guys who served early in the war, were privileged to serve with their sons later in the war. That's how long this war lasted. And we just got out of it, and it was a shitty exit that people are still pissed off about. And we can get into that later. But it seems as if we're not even covertly, we're overtly trying as hard as we can to get into some kind of military engagement with Russia here. Now, if you have anything to say outside of I want war with Russia, then you're a Russia sympathizer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're a piece of shit traitor. I got like over 10 combat deployments in my country for my country, and I just like when Hillary Clinton called Tulsi Gabbard a traitor and a Russian
Yeah, Russian
sympathizer
sympathizer.
after she had multiple combat deployments to Iraq, patching people up who've been blown up in bombs and shot up. It's like these people they just get away with it. But the truth of the matter is it's like if we're going to get drug into a world war with a potential nuclear power, another axis, if you want to add China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, like it never happens when you involve these kind of superpowers in a multipolar global state, okay, where there's more than one superpower vying for supremacy. You're going to end up with the same outcomes that you ended up in the beginning of the 20th century with World War One and World War II. Anybody that doesn't think that's the case is kidding themselves. And for those of us that have been out there and been to war, and I got 3 boys, and it's like as bad as they are gonna want to go to war, just like I did when I was a kid. It's my fucking job to not let it happen. You know what I mean? Like that's my job now. My job is to make sure that shit doesn't happen unless it is absolutely necessary. I mean, absolutely necessary. And we've seen that we have gotten into unnecessary conflicts and wars for a long time.
That's because wars are initiated by people who don't have to fight them.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to be made.
Yep.
There's already bids in Ukraine for the contractor companies.
Yeah.
They're going to come in and rebuild the country.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that will make a society or an individual wealthy like war. Nothing. It is the number one industry on the planet, and it always fucking has been. Always since the beginning of time.
Yep. Whether you were stealing it or whether you were destroying it to rebuild it and reap the benefit from rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
True.
And so we will get into more of that later, and we welcome comments about that stuff or recommendations on what you think. And we'll bounce over to you, lady, before it's back to me.
So I think that's a good transition, talking about how if you are uncomfortable even with the idea of going like creating total war, then you're considered to be an adversary. And that kind of rhetoric just stinks of propaganda. And so it just makes me think about when we were kids. You remember when we were kids? And our parents would watch the news, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and then later incorporating like Fox News in 1996. So Americans believed the news. We believed journalists, and we trusted the networks. We were led by the likes of Walter Cronkite. I immediately think of mustache. Cronkite. Hunter S. Thompson. I mean, he was interesting. I guess we believed him in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we would listen to these details of the events of the day, and we would just completely understand it. We understood the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, a free press. What we didn't understand was how important it was and how much we were taking it for granted. So if we fast forward to our postmodern society, we get to 2019 and we have this like sudden pandemic. It breaks out, it's spreading hard and fast worldwide. We get terrified because we really have no information. We don't know what to expect. We don't know how to protect our families or our livelihoods. And we turn to the news for information. So all of this misleading information that turns out to be pretty gosh darn accurate, I think we're forgetting something. And what we're forgetting is that.
Hey babe, really quick though, why don't you give them a really quick background on how, like, you're one of the people you've had a transition.
Yes.
Listen,
I'm
people, when
transliberal.
met transliberal, I'd say transstatist.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna say when I say liberal
I've
in the
become
original sense of
libertarian
the
is
word,
what's happened.
yes.
So yes, okay. So context, like Job Corps context.
Just I don't know. I'd just give them like a 60-second rundown.
60-second rundown. Okay, last 3 years. Okay, I previously like left, not just left leaning, like left bent individual that is it, like I absolutely think 100% of everybody who walks this planet deserves basic human respect, right?
Mhm.
And I think everybody deserves human rights. I have some areas of deficit where if you've hurt kids, you're a pedophile. I do want to punch you in the throat and then bury you.
Mhm.
But outside of that, like everybody gets a fair shake. I don't care. Take no shit, do no harm.
Yeah.
That's my thing. But I have seen, particularly because I was in a leadership role in a social educational program that was a federal contract run by a corporate contractor.
That's a lot of words.
It's a lot, but it's also, I state it because there was a lot of bureaucracy that was revealed to be completely vapid and 100% in service of the dollar.
Yeah.
Did not matter what it did to people, whether they were employees that were teaching and taking a far less salary with no summers off to teach there, or whether they were the socioeconomically disadvantaged / disabled students that were accessing a federal program to get adult basic education. So all of those different words, you put them all in a pot, and that pot is we need to be able to support the people who do not have the socioeconomic capability at this time to support themselves so that they can eventually do so. But apparently, when you have a mock pandemic, that is reason enough to create policy that is so completely asinine and conflicting with itself that even saying, hey, do you understand this doesn't make sense, is a reason for a write-up. Mm-hmm. Or in an entire professional lifetime of being the most accommodating kind person I possibly can be, being told I'm combative, which now I find to be complimentary, right? But at the time was shocking. Yep. I asked the corporate head that was sent to replace temporarily the really honorable director of that site that got fired for doing the right thing. I asked him, I said, hey, are you telling me right now that we have to enact these policies that are at the significant mental health and developmental deficit of these vulnerable students in order to meet a bottom line for your contract? And the response was clear-eyed, yes. That's the beginning of the metamorphosis to I don't want it and I hate it. Anyway, so
hey man, we're the bitches to our corporate overlords, man. I mean,
no more.
That's what I'm finding out more than anything. And I was right there with you with Job Corps and Adams, and I was an instructor there. And
Job Corps is a great program.
Yeah, it's a fantastic program.
Don't have it rerun by corporations, or the government.
My mom was finished out her nursing career teaching at a Job Corps in Anaconda, Montana. And I ended up there kind of on accident, and it was, the mission was good, but the fucking like dealing with the corporate overlords in that place was a shitty thing to have to deal with. And it was a shitty thing to have to watch you go through, especially in your position where you ate a lot of shit for the rest of us so we wouldn't have to. And so, I mean, anyway, the COVID infrastructure there during the time that I was there was bonkers. Really, really opened my eyes to a lot of things. So anyway, I just wanted to that was a quick little down dirty on you. We'll get more into that. But.
Well, okay, but you know what? This speaks to what's happening right now, and just in the widespread populace that is America. We have seen this kind of devastation happen to individuals, but we're also starting to see it happen in a larger, more broad sense, and that is that people who have been impacted by this insanity are now starting to go, I feel like we're being pushed. I feel like we're being coerced. And so we see this now. Like we have Vice, BuzzFeed just ate it. CNN. I mean, everything is going down in ratings, which is our assessment of whether or not people want to digest what they're giving us, right?
Yeah, this is some of the worst ratings in recorded history for the networks, and honestly, they, and really quick, just to put this in there, they don't get paid on their ratings. Like their ratings can be dog shit, and it doesn't even fucking matter. They're still going to make the money that they make because they get paid from advertising and they get paid from subscription. Mm-hmm. That's how they get paid. They don't get paid based on rating. So their rating could be 0. And as long as they're on the subscription base, they're still making the same money. That's the thing.
Not for long.
You have to be able to subscribe to, like, you're either getting Dish Network or what is that? I don't even know if they're fucking, like, we have YouTube TV for sports and shit. And that's the only time that we're watching that kind of stuff.
But eventually it comes out in the wash. Like eventually that becomes like, that's the last nail in the coffin is, you know what? I don't think we're going to keep doing this. Nobody's watching it.
Yeah.
And so they have to keep making it. They either have to make sure that they are pandering to the people that are paying them, or they need to change it up. Mm-hmm. So right now, what we're seeing is something that's really important and I think interesting. And this is that reevaluation of ideals. So
we're seeing grassroots journalism reemerge, baby. That's what we're seeing.
Well, we are, but we're also exactly because there is now there's being a paradigm shift in what we perceive as authority.
Yep.
So not recently, like 2013-ish, but it feels recent because I was just learning about it.
Damn, so 2013 feels.
It feels recent. It's not though. So there's this.
That was a long ass time ago.
It was.
It was 10 goddamn years.
It was a long time ago.
Didn't you have any kids then?
Yeah, I just had a Mira.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now she has opinions.
That feels weird now.
So this researcher, Stephen Gibson, he decided to reevaluate the Milgram experiment. So you might remember the Milgram experiment as the one where it was a Yale study. And so participants were instructed to continue providing electric shocks to individuals that were clearly in distress. So this has long been a flagship example of like how, World War II atrocities took place. Like, how did people become a Nazi? Like, oh, well, we bend to authority. So it's been a really, really...
ordinary men.
Yes, like ordinary men. So it's been this significant like perspective on, well, humans will just do what they're told. And it's kind of, and so I love that Stephen Gibson reevaluated this. So he got the transcripts from the Milgram experiment. And he's reading through and he's doing a really great qualitative analysis, which a lot of people will poo-poo qualitative research because they think it's soft or fluffy. We need hard data.
I'll do qualitative research all day, baby.
Yeah, but you can't do it just because you don't like stats.
Sign me up for qualitative research.
But the good thing about
all day long.
Qualitative research does something that quantitative research can't do, and it dials down into the why. Mm-hmm. And so when Dr. Gibson was looking at these transcripts, he's noting these things that are really significant. He's noting that at every instance when the participant was instructed to push the button to create a shock for the other person, the participant said, no, I don't want to. There was resistance. So it's just... I think that the Milgram experiment saying that we just bend to authority provides a more palatable explanation for human atrocity. We just saying things like we're inclined to obey authority. Well, that subsequently and quietly dismisses the unethical practice of those in authority that are demanding harmful behavior. It's far from a one-way street. Obedience is a complex network of highways that's difficult to understand outside of specific context. So Milgram's experiment is just as much about obedience as it is coercion, leading us to the state of mass media and corporatized information. So Gibson's evaluation of transcripts that indicated that ongoing resistance to harming others in almost every circumstance is important. This is the context. These participants were recruited, guided, and their behavior was insisted upon. One quote that many people consider ubiquitous to this experiment is just terrifying. It has so many sociological implications. But repeatedly, the researchers engaged in this would say, the experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. You have no other choice. You must go on. Does this sound at all like other sociopolitical rhetoric? Authority, situational or positional, insisting upon compliance to a higher goal that is both vague and full of incentive, financial or influential, to the authority figure, is one that should immediately stink of manipulation. And we're starting to identify the smell. So it comes in wafts. You're only a good person if you do this. And people who don't do this are bad. And you should probably report them. It's a fraction
Or
of
they
an
should
inch.
just die.
Yeah, yes. It's
Literally.
a fraction of an inch from people who don't do this aren't actually people.
Right.
So this is why mass media is dying, and it's dying a painful and obvious and embarrassing death. America, we're smarter than this. We're wiser than this. This is why we left. This is why we built a new country, for the ability to live freely and peacefully and critically considering our options and determining what I believe is a life motto: how to take no shit and do no harm. Media today supports what appears to be a widespread federal ethos of giving a shit and doing harm. Hiding behind an overly litigious society, we're seeing mass media reflect the immorality and extortive practices of those that wish to capitalize on the most vulnerable of our citizenry. Speaking of capitalization and harm, just a little more information has recently come out that leads us to the coward of the week.
Coward of the week. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, for those of you that haven't had enough of this or thinks that this should die, this is for you. So my coward of the week is for everyone and any entity that dismissed the case of Jeffrey Epstein. You are my cowards of the week. In August of 2019, Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell while awaiting trial on federal charges of sex trafficking. Again and again.
Yeah, it wasn't his first rodeo.
Officially, his death was labeled a suicide by hanging. However, private pathologist Dr. Michael Baden sat in on Epstein's autopsy and drew a separate conclusion: murder. How did he come to this conclusion? Mr. Baden said was because of specific broken bones in Epstein's neck, as well as an eyeball hemorrhages, far more common in strangulation homicides than in hangings. Baden said he had been privately hired by Epstein's family to observe the autopsy carried out soon after his death. As he did, he said, he drew conclusions that contrasted dramatically from what was found in the official report. Again, death by hanging, suicide. I think the evidence, quote, I think the evidence points towards homicide rather than suicide, Baden told reporters, insisting that if the financier, Epstein, had really hung himself, he would have had no neck fractures. Epstein, Baden said, had fractures on either side of his larynx and one on the left side of his hyoid bone. Hyoid bone.
Hyland? This one, right here.
Right?
That's where it is.
Mm-hmm. Hanging does not cause these broken bones. Homicide does. Quote, those 3 fractures are extremely unusual in suicidal hangings and could occur much more commonly in homicidal strangulation. I've not seen in 50 years where that occurred in a suicidal hanging case.
50 years.
Stu's been working in New York City. I mean, like...
He couldn't have seen lots of homicides or suicides then.
Very unlikely. In 50 years. Okay. All right. Furthermore, and this is even better, security guards were sleeping at the time of the incident, and the security cameras were broken at the time of the incident. Okay. Keep in mind that this is a federal facility, and also keep in mind that I'm a former federal law enforcement officer. I have brought prisoners to federal facilities. They are far more well-funded than state facilities. Generally speaking, they're far more secure for those very reasons as well. Okay, so we'll just say that. Federal facilities have more security, human, and they're also more technological. More, not less. Secondarily, It wasn't as if Epstein was at the federal prison or jail in Mammoth, Wyoming, in Yellowstone National Park. He was in fucking Manhattan, New York City. That's where he was, at a federal facility in Manhattan, New York City. It is absolutely ridiculous to believe that the security cameras weren't working and that the guards were asleep. Fuck. Also, he played, and this is number, what is this, 3? Yeah, for this paragraph. Also, he stated plainly and overtly days before that he wasn't suicidal, days before he suicided himself.
I have something to say there.
Yeah.
Having worked with people with chronic mental health issues, including clinical depression, these are very suicidal people. Do you know what they don't say? I need you to know I'm not suicidal. Do you know what they say when they're scared someone's going to kill them? I need you to know I'm not suicidal. That's what they say. Sorry, continue.
Hey, and this is a PhD candidate with tons of experience, people. All right. Just so you know.
And logic.
Yeah. All right. So there's all that. Okay. And I mean, like, I'm sorry, but I was an investigator for 10 years and I've been intelligent for around that amount of time as well, like critically thinking.
Age 30 and up.
That, I mean, shit, dude. That's an insane amount of shit for us just to be like,
it's probably true.
Yep. All right, so maybe why is it getting blown? Why is nobody giving a fuck? Okay, so let's talk about some recent revelations and some old revelations and pile them up here. So this just came out. This is super interesting. Current CIA director William Burns, then Secretary of State at the time of the incident, current CIA director of the fucking CIA.
He should have lots of access to secrets.
Had at least 3 meetings with him. Had at least 3 meetings with Epstein, and he was Secretary of the State at the time. Okay. Also, I want you to keep in mind that Epstein at this time was a registered child sex offender as well. He had been convicted and imprisoned.
Pedophile.
Yes.
Pedophile.
Yep. Meeting with the Secretary of fucking State, future head of the CIA. Okay. Yeah. And he was at that time as well. Also, then President Obama, White House counsel Catherine Ruemmler, met with him. Bard College president. We're going to find out that there's a lot of people that are involved in colleges that hooked up with this dude. Leon Boltstein and Professor Noam fucking Chomsky. Noam Chomsky, man.
Makes me sad.
Noam
makes me angry.
Chomsky. Dude.
Chomsky.
I mean, this is that's
I'm losing all my smart dudes.
We're gonna find cool. And so this
Hawking.
Yeah.
Chomsky.
I know, this is new revelations. And so, let's dig a little deeper here. I mean, I've always respected the dude for sure. I've done a lot of political science, geopolitical work, and studying, and I'm going to continue it. It's not, a lot of this shit is just so discouraging. The meetings in question all occurred after Epstein had served jail time in 2008 for a sex crime involving a minor.
14 years old. 14 years old. Yep. Pedophile.
Epstein had been accused of sexually abusing girls as young as 14 in Florida 2 years earlier and was investigated by the FBI. He reached a deal with prosecutors to avoid federal charges and pled guilty to soliciting and procuring a minor for prostitution. That's the 14-year-old girl. Epstein was also a registered sex offender at the time he met with now CIA Director Burns, Ruemmler, Boltstein, and Noam fucking Chomsky. Okay. For those of you that aren't familiar with who Noam fucking Chomsky is, here's a quick down and dirty. Just because, like I said, I do respect the guy's work. He's best known for his contribution to psychology, babes.
I'm going to say we're hesitating on claiming him now.
Well, I don't know. I bet you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. All right. So, okay. Chomsky, the concept of universal grammar, which states that language is innate or inborn instead of learned, as in believed, and behavioralism theory. Stick with me, folks. Okay. He's written over 100 books on such topics as linguistics, mass media, war, and politics. He was even referenced in the Netflix movie Captain Fantastic, starring Viggo Mortensen. I thought that movie was flipping fantastic. Would have totally lived that dude's life with that family. Right?
Mm-hmm. I want that bus.
Depressing. Chomsky's response to being outed: it's none of your business. That's it. It's none of your business, world. None of your business that he had meetings with a registered sex offender, pedophile, and known sex trafficker. Okay, your ability to be an intellectual far exceeds society's need to protect our children, right? Is that what we're supposed to believe? That's the trade-off. It's the trade-off we're willing to do there. Nom.
No.
Dude, it's a bummer, man.
That's a bummer.
Babe, remember that Facebook argument I had a while back?
The lawyer.
Yeah, buddy of mine from high school, and Facebook friends that forever, and yeah, he's a current lawyer, and we got into a little Facebook political discussion involving Epstein and insider trading. And first of all, he didn't address Epstein at all. Like, that was just kind of like glazed over.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to see here. But he did address insider trading. And he said, I'm going to quote, but not really quote because I don't have his quote, "It's not illegal for congressmen and women to participate in insider trading." He literally said that over and over, like 3 times. But that's not the fucking point that I was trying to make, is it? The point is that insider trading is bullshit. That's the point, right? If the citizenry can get incarcerated for things that politicians don't, then we don't have a democratic republic, do we? We've officially moved toward an oligarchy here. We're powerful, where the power is dispersed amongst the powerful elite. For America, a powerful corporate elite. And these are the elite people. A lot of them are involved here. So, off track, back to Dickface. Who are the other prominent members of society that hooked up with Jeffrey Epstein? Talking about this could get me Clinton, but here we go. Then President Bill Clinton, lots of times. And we thought the current CIA director was bad. Jesus. Okay. A lot of people know about that. See, a lot of people are going to come to terms on this. Donald Trump. Yep. Sorry. I know I have a lot of Trump buddies here, but he met with Epstein. I mean, that's fucking bullshit, just like it is with anybody else. If you don't believe me, in 2002, Trump stated this about Epstein: he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. I mean, that sounds like Trump, dude.
Sounds like Trump.
I mean, it just does. Even said that he's known him for 15 years, and that was in 2002. He said he knew him for 15 years, and that was in 2002. All right. Alan Dershowitz, prominent Harvard professor. A lot of professors happening here. 2 different women have said that they were trafficked by Epstein and directed to have sex with this dude. Okay. Leslie Wexner. Who is she? Only the owner of Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. No big deal. Oh, and Wexner is the previous owner of the lavish 71st Street mansion where Epstein is alleged to have committed some of his crimes, and where police found child pornography in 2019. Child pornography in her apartment. Okay. Linked with Epstein. Bill Gates. That's right. Bill Gates, Mr. Vaccine. This dude was manifested to Epstein Island 37 times. 37 times.
There's no reasonable explanation. 37?
That's like, I mean, that's a high number. Let's just say it's 10 times.
Let's just say no. We know why they got divorced.
I mean, fuck it. All right. So, whatever it is.
But don't worry. Take his advice about socioeconomics,
what to do with your kids.
vaccinations, and then
take his advice about what to do with your kids.
Yeah, take care of your kids. And also eat your friggin' whatever that burger is that clearly makes you so svelte and healthy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Keep
Okay.
going.
So there's that. Prince Andrew, a longtime personal friend of Epstein, and
Wait,
has been directly accused.
royalty doesn't ever abuse people.
No, there's no history of
No.
royalty abusing citizenry.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, a longtime personal friend of Epstein has been directly accused of having sex with at least one underage girl. 2015 court documents, Virginia Roberts Golfrey said she was coerced into having sex with the British royal by, you guessed it, Jeffrey Epstein. Shocker. Mort Zuckerman, former owner of the New York Daily News and The Atlantic. Woody Allen. Allen. Yep, some of you might know him as a big-time movie director whose adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, alleges he sexually assaulted her when she was 7.
I gotta say
Has
it.
made several appearances with Epstein over the years.
Top 3 things. Everybody knows it. Woody Allen. What are they? Glasses.
Pedophile.
Movies. Sorry, keep going.
Dun, dun, dun. Yep. Okay. So yeah, Woody Allen. Larry Summers, did I say him? Yep.
Nope.
Larry Summers, former Harvard president and Clinton Treasury Secretary. Bill Barr, former Attorney fucking General. Lawrence Krauss, a theoretical physicist who retired from Arizona State University in 2018 after multiple sexual misconduct allegations. Epstein was a major donor to his ASU program. One thing you're going to see through all of this is that many of these individuals have since been imprisoned, or at the very least accused of rape and sexual misconduct, at the very least, many of these people. This one sucks. Stephen Hawking. I mean, it's kind of weird to think like a guy in his...
We have questions.
You know what I mean? But like, according to reports, like Epstein built him like a submarine thing to accommodate him so he could go underwater in the Virgin Islands.
I still have questions. I think that's one of those things that speaks to Epstein's desire to surround himself with influential people. And I think that when you say, I've been to his island 37 times versus I have mobility issues and he has the resources to allow me to go underwater, very different motivations.
Yeah.
So I'll put a little pin in that Stephen Hawking right there because we've got some follow-up we need to do.
Fuck. I hate,
Mm-hmm.
Shitty though. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Pinker, Harvard psychology professor, another Harvard person. Roger Schenck, artificial intelligence expert Roger Schenck, visited Epstein in jail even in 2008 when he was a professor at Northwestern University. It's just like lots of university people. Harvey Weinstein.
No.
Jesus.
Really?
Shocker. Movie producer, rapist, in prison for rape currently. Another one of those people. Everybody knows who Harvey Weinstein is. He had an intimate relationship with this dude. Big surprise. The list keeps going. Like there's more too. Like there's way more people than this. There is. Easily to find. So can we just be real about this? Seriously? Is there anyone out there that really believes that these folks are virtuous? This is some kind of like odd coincidence, like fucking like alignment of the stars, to where like non-pedophiles get together and do pedophile shit? I mean, like what, like,
I'm not gay. I just like having sex with the same gender.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous,
it is what it is.
Sediment. And so, hanging with a registered child sex offender at an island known to traffic young children. Come on. I mean, from his island to his death and everything in between, there's not a whole lot of mystery here going on. Epstein was a convicted child offender. And not just any sex offender, but a child sex offender. Children, 14-year-old girls, bro. All these people met with this dude. And they met with him after he'd been convicted as a pedophile, okay? Registered. And while everybody knew about Epstein's Island, it wasn't any secret. How many of you out there have daughters? Dudes, how many of you out there have daughters? Think about it. I have two beautiful 10-year-old little girls, and I wouldn't let a single motherfucker on this list get close to either of them, including Trump, man. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Sith Lords. If you had an intimate dealings with this dude, you're a piece of shit. End of story. Clinton, Trump, Chomsky, current CIA Director Burns, Stephen goddamn Hawking. But these dudes are garbage, because if you're not willing to protect children, the absolute most vulnerable and future of our society, you're a coward.
It's good. It's true. So I'm supposed to do the hero of the week. And I really wanted to say somebody that is like at the forefront of like independent media, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to put a pin in it, because after this week and all of these new revelations about literally everybody that has decided that Epstein's Island was like a holiday.
We got 5 kids.
Oh my God. We have
fun.
Like, yeah, never
like,
ever.
If people just like blow this shit off as if it's inconsequential to have this many powerful people have this many dealings with this dude and just be like,
we'll just forget about it. Which is exactly why my hero of the week is anyone who has power and influence and social mobility that's not a goddamn pedophile.
Jesus.
Anyway, so my hero of the week is people who have the ability to be awful and decide to be good people instead.
I know.
Yep.
Love you, girl.